There we go, and start when you're ready, Stephanie.
Wouldn't it be great to know that your favorite wallet, belt, or even handbag was made with a material that wasn't responsible for deforestation, water contamination, and fossil fuel consumption? Of course it would. The fashion industry is the second most polluting industry on the planet. And what we're addressing is how brands are trying to change this by adopting new sustainable materials. The problem they're facing is finding suppliers that make these materials that meet their needs in three main areas: quality and performance, aesthetic and hand feel, and most importantly, a sufficient supply at an attainable price point. The options out there right now are not adequate, but we have a solution for them. I'm Stephanie, the CEO and co-founder of MycoFutures, and we're enabling brands to reduce the carbon footprint of the products they make with our leather alternative, created with mycelium, the root system of mushrooms. Our material is animal-free, plastic-free, and non-toxic, and can be grown in just weeks. We have a unique approach to precision agriculture and a non-toxic tanning method that makes our material the most viable alternative to leather that is both circular and scalable, and brands are taking notice. We chose mycelium because it compares with leather on the microscopic level, closely resembling leather's cross-linking structure. With synthetics, no elements are interconnected. Our solution adopts circularity throughout, but with a focus in four areas. We use forestry and agricultural waste as low-value inputs that feed our high-value output. Precision-controlled indoor farming is scalable and resource efficient, so we create an environment that encourages just the roots to grow, but not the actual mushroom. And unlike farming greens, we don't need high temperatures or a lot of light, just a precisely controlled environment. We've developed our green chemistry process that makes tanning our product strong and flexible, but isn't bad for people or the planet. And at the end of life, will be transformed into compost when exposed to their environment, or biochar, which are both valuable soil amendments for farming, without migrating any chemicals or microplastics. And this translates into big impact, reducing CO2 emissions by 85 to 94%, since our material produces only 5 kilograms of CO2 per square meter versus 73 kilograms for leather. Brands will see an 80% reduction in material wastage because the cow's irregular hide shape has natural variances, which means that up to 40% of it can't be used. Our material is grown in a sheet with customized dimensions for our customers' pattern layout. And at the end, there's a 94% reduction in time spent in the landfill. Leather can take up to 50 years to biodegrade, potentially leaching chemicals. Our material can fully decompose in less than a year. At scale, this contributes to at least 170,000 tons of avoided CO2 emissions annually. This is a massive opportunity with global leather goods valued in the hundreds of billions of dollars. The synthetic leather market is also key as customers shift away from fossil fuel-based materials. We're a materials producer in a very fast-growing segment of a massive market, and the demand just keeps growing, but is still unfulfilled. At market entry, our customers are creating small leather goods and accessories in the high-end and luxury segment. We, of course, have competitors, the biggest one being the status quo, brands continuing to use leather and synthetics. But we know this is not a viable long-term solution, and they really aren't great in any of these categories. Plant-based materials are a good start to adoption of new materials, but the majority still use plastic coatings and backings and have unknown levels of toxicity and viability at the end of life. Our small number of direct competitors are doing great things for awareness and education around mycelium materials, but they still aren't completely free from plastic coatings or scaffolding. They aren't making enough, and that means that they're still really expensive. From the time we started MycoFutures, our customers have been telling us they want something even better. In addressing the challenges of meeting our customer needs, we've determined our competitive strategy. By partnering with tanneries, we'll be able to reach our price targets, leveraging their established supply chains, infrastructure, and customer relationships, making ours the most accessible mycelium material. We employ agriculture and manufacturing tech, like automated continuous processes and machine learning monitoring in our farms, so we can create that sufficient supply, but also be able to duplicate this process in leather hubs around the world. And we merge our innovation with the heritage of leathercraft to ensure customers get the experience of leather they expect, from durability to hand feel. And we're already getting the feedback of how leather-like our material is. People are really impressed. Our IP strategy is to keep trade secrets for our processes for now. We have consulted IP professionals and they agree this is the best way to stay capital efficient, but more importantly, maintain barriers to entry to others wanting to produce mycelium materials. Our trade secrets include our selected fungi strains, the nutrient blend and cultivating conditions that make the mycelium grow, as well as the chemical combination for our tanning method and our finishing practices. We will have future patents in the engineering and infrastructure of our vertical farm and material handling. So we are a B2B model as a supplier of brands, both directly and through channel partners, starting with tanneries located in Italy, Spain, and Portugal. We offer the value of innovation, agility, and data transparency, while supplying the raw mycelium material and a proprietary chemistry to fit in seamlessly with their existing infrastructure and processes. And this will set us up for future opportunities to license our tech, joint ventures, or even acquisition by major players in the materials innovation. Another aspect is a branded material. I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of these companies, and to a lot of us, this means quality and a performance that you can trust. And so by offering this to brands, we can do the value of the transparency where Lycra tells you about their processes, their sustainability, and that really adds value and opens us up to a wider market. There's growing traction in the fashion industry and other verticals, with leading brands creating products with new materials and selling out their collections. This shows the demand for this innovation, but there's still massive opportunity, which is why our traction has been growing rapidly. We've developed our proprietary biofabrication technology with at least 6 iterations to our material MVP and have product prototypes, securing us our first 8 LOIs. We're also having conversations with really big brands like Steve Madden, Chanel, and Kering, who have all found us. And we recently moved into our first lab space at the brand new University of Toronto Spin-Up Lab to help us commercialize our product for market. My co-founder and I bring a unique set of skills to our business, particularly in my 20 years of entrepreneurship experience and Leo's background with our previous mushroom farm, leading our cultivation. We've also built a strong support system with our expert advisors in leather buying and product development, fiber science and life cycle assessment, and agriculture science and fungal biology, and through our participation in some really prestigious accelerators. Today, we're raising our pre-seed round of $750,000 so we can expand from lab scale to room scale. And we have started diligence with our lead with a commitment of $250,000. This will unlock our team development, access to grants and research partnerships, and allow us to further execute our IP strategy. Our key outcomes will be ramping up production to 100 square meters per month, providing customers with samples and producing prototypes, and will, really importantly, to perform lab-based testing. This will allow us to secure additional channel partners, pilot agreements, and purchase orders. At the end of our 18-month runway, we will be at the point of early commercialization. This will set us on our trajectory to reach break even at our seed stage pilot, and at Series A, execute our full scale up, producing 200 square meters per month for over 200 customers, offering a full range of colors and textures. We are a gritty and resilient team backed by a strong ecosystem network, creating a highly sought after product that will make a big impact. So we hope you'll join us in our mission to create a future where looking good doesn't come at a cost to the planet. Thank you, and I welcome your questions and feedback.
Great job, Stephanie. You're just under 9 minutes, so you have some space, which is great.
I don't know about that much under.
Yeah, you have about 10 to 12 minutes, so you have a little bit of flexibility there, which is good. Yeah, so let's go to first feedback. Do you want to start with Brian?
Sure, happy to go. Wow, I have to say that's a really strong pitch. I really think it's strong. You speak clearly, you're very credible, and you are presenting this in a compelling way. I'm struggling to critique stuff, but I'll find something. Look, your slides are great. Maybe a few of them might have a little bit too much on them, because remember, we're trying to digest, so maybe it's kind of like précis writing. Maybe just trim a little bit on some of them, but they're graphically very strong slides. I really like the way you started with what it is you do. You did not spend too long on the problem, which is something I'm finding other people are. They're spending so much time on the problem, I forget what it is they do. So that is super strong. Comment on market size. Laurie, and I'm curious to hear what Laurie says. We get a lot of the Tam Sam song, right? Everybody does it that way. And I would be a little bit more curious on maybe a bottom up perspective on your market sizing. Like, start with, where you're going and who your customer is, identify them clearly to us and what value that represents, maybe then go up to, Psalm. TAM, I don't know. My eyes kind of glaze over at TAM because everybody's got an $8 bazillion TAM, right? So maybe just a slight shift in perspective, I think would help the investor. Your competition slide was beautiful. I'm so tired of seeing quadrants because everybody's in the upper right. They're always in the upper right. So that was brilliant. Your IP strategy, I liked. You were very clear on how you elaborated that. As you know, Stephanie, as investors, we want to know what your sustainable competitive advantage is. And I think you were pretty clear on that. I know you talked about different approaches, but I like that. The business model slide, again, to my previous comments, felt a tiny bit busy. But again, maybe just a bit of trimming around the edges. Your raise again was great because you talked about use of funds, which, as Laurie will tell you, we always want to know what you're going to do with the funds. So it shows you've thought about that. I loved your growth slide. You were the first person I've seen in months who's actually shown, I think you showed revenue and you showed expenses and you showed, I think, was it EBITDA? I can't remember the third one.
The gross margin and EBITDA margin.
Yeah, see, that's brilliant. I mean, that's because I don't ask Laurie. We don't see that very often. Everybody fires off their revenue. The one thing that I wasn't clear on was, and I'll be quick here, your y-axis. I mean, I don't think it's recurring revenue, right? Is it just?
No, it's total.
Okay, so maybe just because I think you wrote y-axis millions, but I didn't know. Yeah, so that, I mean, again, trivial thing. Growth plan slide. Yeah. Oh, and so with your raise, Laurie will tell you, we always want to know, I mean, great slide. What vehicle are you using? Right? I mean, and look, full disclosure, some entrepreneurs will say, well, I'm willing to discuss. That's okay. Others have a fairly clear, plan. I'm going to do a save, 20% discount, blah, 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 pre-value, pre-money cap. And others will go the convertible note route. Again, that's for you and your advisors to discuss. I see what Laurie says. You don't have to have it there, but sometimes it shows you've thought it through. So other than that, really strong pitch, really, and good idea. Very clever idea. I mean, would you become a B Corp with some of this? I think you would.
As soon as possible, yeah.
Yeah. So that's, well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So Brian covered most of what I wanted to say, so I'll try to add some things. I think at the beginning you talked about sort of the three things that people are going to measure you on, which was price, the feel, and the look. I forget exactly what the words were. But then I sort of had to piece together the answers to those things through the presentation. Like if you go to slide 3, you had a picture on the right-hand side of the product. And nobody will ever accuse me of being fashionable, but I thought they looked terrible. Like because I think you were showing the raw material.
Can we see that slide?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it up right now. Sorry, just 1 second. Here it is. Sorry. That's slide 3, yeah.
that's the raw material?
The raw material and then the purse that we like
Yeah,
the
like the raw material, I assume if I was looking at cowhide, it would look ugly as well. But I think, but if you're trying to say if you're trying to sell to me as a consumer, I want to see what it's going to look like to me. So I just, that picture sort of makes me, "Ugh, I don't think I want a belt that looks like that or a jacket that looks like that." Again, I'm not a fashionable person, so maybe that is the fashionable, but it didn't strike me as a consumer as something I would want. And again, you didn't really talk about the feel. I mean, again, what sort of feedback you've got on. I guess I'm still struggling again as a consumer. How does this actually compare to leather? If I had this on if I had a jacket made out of this and a jacket made out of leather, could I tell them apart? And I don't know the answer to that question. I mean,
Yeah.
could I tell them apart?
Yeah, well, I mean, so the reason I put in like the feedback we're getting, because when people
Yeah.
touch it, so like, are you sure this is mushroom? Like,
Yeah.
even some
Yeah.
vegans have been like, oh, it's almost too leather-like. They don't
Yeah.
really believe it. So, it's really, really interesting feedback from most people. I mean, no one tells me they don't like it, which is fine. I welcome it. But people are like, wow, this is like feels amazing. This looks so cool. So, but it's, I mean, the type of people I talk to might have a different point of view on it. So it is really good feedback to know that not
Yeah.
everyone sees it the same way or has the same feedback on it.
Because again, it wasn't clear. Maybe it's just because I wasn't reading it, listening to it properly, whether it was a one-to-one substitute for leather or another product that was sort of like leather. Could you use it in every place that leather gets used?
Just
You
about.
could put in car seats.
Yeah, we've talked to automotive interior OEMs
Yeah.
that are exploring that. I guess I don't say it can be used anywhere. For example, our market we don't project like saddles or motorcycle boots or combat boots
Yeah.
in near term, but in terms of any of like this small handheld or easily wearing things, yeah, like, it's a replacement for that for sure.
Yeah, because like, I mean, most leather that you buy in the store doesn't look anything like the cowhide when it came off the cow. It gets processed significantly, colored and all kinds of things. And I assume yours does the same thing. So
Yeah, it'll eventually have colors and things attached to it. Part of it too is we want to use plant-based dyes and things that are not the acrylic plastic goop that kind of goes onto everything.
and the fact that it biodegrades so quickly, does that concern me as a consumer? If I get my belt wet, when is it gonna deteriorate?
No, only when it's in a composting environment.
Yeah.
This is a year old and it's been touched and
Yeah.
it got completely soaked in Montreal and nothing changed once it dried. So we know that it will break down when it's like buried in the heat, but not as you're wearing it. Just like your t-shirt will break down in the heat, but not as you're wearing it.
So I think in general, I was just saying, I think it needs to be clear how this is actually a one-to-one replacement for leather, not as something that's. The differences are the benefits, not in sort of the look and feel. Because consumers, I mean, a lot of people buy things because they're environmentally friendly, but most people don't. They just buy stuff because they like the look of it, they like the feel of it, and having it environmentally friendly is a nice advantage, but only if the other things are covered. So that was just me.
Thank you.
But I love the idea. I think it's nice to see a product like this coming on the market.
Thank you.
We use too much leather.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Brian? Or anything to conclude? Before we conclude, I should say.
No, like I said, I think it's a very strong presentation. Maybe drill down a tiny bit on what you see as your biggest competitive threat. Is it just, as Laurie says, is it taste? Is it, are you going for a higher end market first? I mean, those are the kind of the questions I'm looking at. I mean, people spend $5,000 on a Hermes bag. I mean, go figure. But is that where you're going, or is it more sort of the eco-aware, fashion-aware, average consumer? So maybe a little bit of that, but look, like I said, graphically very strong, and you're a good presenter.
Thank you.
The other thing I'll add is Brian mentioned the bottom-up view of the finances, I think is important. As Brian said, the top-down view is kind of interesting, but not worth more than a few seconds of your time. It's really how are you going to grow the business from the bottom up over the next few years.
Awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Stephanie. It's going to conclude the recording.